Hello students, today we're going to continue our unit on safety. The first thing today that you're going to do is work on filling out this worksheet called What Do You Think? The substitute will hand it out to you. Once you're done, I want you to come up with 3 reasons why you answered agree or disagree for any of these. When you're done, we'll discuss these, so pause the video now. Okay, so we're going to go through these answers that hopefully you also discussed with the substitute and see what the answer is. So everyone has conflicts with other people. The truth is yes, right? Conflicts are part of everyday life. We can't avoid it. However, you can choose how we want to handle conflicts. Our behaviors, use of communication skills, and ability to reduce tension help to determine the outcome of conflict. Conflicts can be opportunities for learning more about ourselves and our relationship with others. So this doesn't mean that this means that we have to learn how to fight fair. Again, we're allowed to disagree, but it's how we disagree that becomes which makes a situation potentially violent, which leads into our next one. Conflicts cause violence. So you can agree or disagree, but when we look at it, conflicts can escalate to violence, but they don't have to. So you can disagree with this one where, no, conflicts are not the cause of violence, or you agree saying, well, that's what leads up to it. But conflicts can be resolved or managed in a non-violent way. And that's really the goal of this unit, is dealing with how do we get out of situations without anybody being injured. Number 3, violence is unavoidable. So when we look at this, it seems as though it is. We hear about it all around us: news, sports, TV shows, movies, video games, the internet, fights in the halls, and so on. However, we do have choices about what we want to watch on television and the movies, who we associate with, and what we do when we have a conflict with someone. Perhaps we can prevent more violence than we think. So it's not unavoidable. We make the decision to use those aggressive acts. Number 4, you have to stand up for yourself to get respect, even if it means fighting. I want you to think about a situation where you got in a fight, and if that even worked out. There's many times where you can get into a situation with someone and not fight about it, but it gets heated. And then there's a situation where someone hits someone. Do you respect that person more or less because they acted out? Fighting is a way to respond to interpersonal conflicts, but it never solves the conflict. In fact, it may increase the possibility of retaliation and revenge. So again, it's a response to conflict, but it doesn't have to be. And again, we know that physical fighting, does not resolve anything. Number 6, violence is one way to solve interpersonal conflicts. So this encourages us to think about the responsibility we have to ourselves and to others. All of us want to be safe from violence. We have the opportunity or responsibility to ourselves to learn how to do that for ourselves. However, each of us is part of several different groups of people: family, friends, students, neighbors, or neighborhoods. If we are going to have an impact on the environment around us, we must take responsibility to do what we can to help others around us stay safe and not use violence also. This might mean getting help for others when they need it, or talking to someone about a dangerous situation. So when we look at, that was totally number 5, wasn't it? No, it's number 6. All right, anyway, so number 6, responsibility to yourself and others. You have to say yes to yourself and others, because obviously violence is a twofold. It's 2 people who are involved in it, and if we can keep ourselves calm, hopefully we can keep others, or we can leave the situation to prevent any physical violence from happening. Number 7, television, internet, movies, music, and video games do not influence interpersonal violence. So you probably heard many debates whether watching TV or hearing about violence increases violent behavior. If we see or hear something frequently enough, we get used to it. The same is true about violence. If we see or hear about interpersonal violence frequently, we get used to it, and it seems more acceptable and normal. We may even, sorry, we may even think it's permissible. The fact is that interpersonal violence is not acceptable, normal, or permissible. The number of violent acts seen on television, in the movies, and in video games has increased, and so has violence. There could be a lot of folds to this. This could have a great discussion. This would be a really good one to talk about whether you agree or disagree with, or if you haven't, you should. Number 8, interpersonal violence can be physical, including sexual, emotional, or nonverbal. We tend to think of interpersonal violence as actions that physically hurt a person, group, or people, oneself, or an object. However, we can use our language to verbally hurt other people as well. Calling people names, threatening and insulting other people are examples of emotional and verbal violence. And insulting others is an example of emotional, oops, I said that, sorry. We can even use nonverbal language to hurt people. Laughing at others or shunning others are 2 examples. Many researchers argue that any type of physical violence or violence, physical or emotional, verbal or nonverbal, causes damage to other people, destroy relationships, and do not solve conflicts. And the last one, it takes more courage and skill to solve an interpersonal conflict than use violence. And again, this one we could agree with. It takes courage and clear thinking to walk away from a confrontation. It takes skill to know how to try to solve a conflict. If a person is in an environment where violence is frequently used in response to conflict, it takes even more courage and skill to stand up for your belief that violence will not solve conflicts. This is especially true if you think you are one of the few students who hold this belief. Remember, interpersonal violence is not acceptable, normal, or permissible. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're going to continue taking some notes. A lot of this is review from what we've gone over in the past. All right, so when we look at solving conflicts, again, we see our 7 health skills. We talk about assessing information, analyzing influences. Analyzing influences, when we look at that one, do we have a friend in our life that tends to encourage conflict, spreading rumors, causing problems, always pushing your buttons, or trying to get you to do things that you don't want to do? Do you have that person in your life, and then why? We have goal setting, so knowing that you don't want to get in a fight and that violence just isn't going to be your personality. Again, if you grew up in a household where maybe violence is more acceptable, it still shouldn't be. And at what point are you going to be held responsible for making your decisions on what violent acts should be dealt with? Decision making is linked right with goal setting. We're going to talk a little bit more about interpersonal communication, and then self-management obviously is how you're going to go about doing that, and advocacy is that long-term goal of helping others also be safe. So you've seen these again. What I want you to do, and you will be handing this in, so on a separate piece of paper, I want you to go through these skills listed here and write out how each one of them can be used to reduce conflict within a social group. So you and your friend are arguing about something. I want you to talk or walk me through, so write out all of the steps of how these can actually help with reducing conflict. I will, when I come back on Monday, expect this to be handed in. Again, take the skill and write out how specifically this skill will help you reduce conflict. Please pause now to work on the assignment. When you're ready, you can resume the video. All right, so next one is how do we minimize that, minimize threats. So again, these are notes that you'll have to take. So cooling down through a tough situation. Number 1 is stay calm in the first place. Depending on who it is, I know that can be difficult, but the more calm that we can stay, the easier it is to prevent escalation. Suggest another time to talk about the issue. A lot of times when we're heated, we kind of get blindsided. Think about a time when even a math problem, I go math easily or chemistry, but think of a math problem that you were stuck on and you could not get past it. You knew the answer, and then you went to bed, woke up the next morning, and all of a sudden you were able to do it. And you had no idea why it was so challenging the day before. Same thing with suggesting another time to talk. Find that time to move on, take a breath, be able to view both sides without them shouting at you, screaming at you, yelling at you, etc., and then address the issue later on. Move away from the person. So, excuse me. We know that moving towards someone is seen as more aggressive, so moving away from the person would be more passive. In a situation where violence might occur, we want to be more passive / get ourselves out of that situation. We don't want to front the person even more. Talk slowly and use a calm voice. Once I start talking, you'll start talking louder, and it keeps going back and forth until we can start to scream. So talk slowly, use a calm voice, keep it at a room indoor level. Again, we'll try to keep the situation under control. Moving slowly always helps. I don't know how many of you have ever had this happen, but when someone makes a quick jerk movement, you flinch away from them. If it's a situation that's getting heated, fast movements might be seen as aggressive movements. They might be taken as someone's going to come at you, and they might react inappropriately during that time. So slow movements, again, are something that help protect you. And then listen to the person. A lot of times, the more heated we get, the less we listen, the louder we also get. So the louder we are, the less we listen, the more frustrated we get. So listen to what the other people say, what the other person is saying. Use I statements. Re-ask questions that you are unsure of, and do what you can to get yourself out of that situation as safe as possible. We also need to know when to manage and don't try to resolve. So managing is when someone's getting more and more angry. And so you understand what these situations are. You'll need them for a test. So the best choice to manage, not resolve. So at this time, we're not looking at talking calm. We're not talking about moving slowly. We're not talking about asking questions anymore. We're talking about getting out of the situation as soon as possible. So if someone's very angry or explosive and not likely to think clearly, we've seen this. I always like to think of the little kid who's having a temper tantrum and they're pounding their fists on the floor. There's no time at this, there's no way at this situation that person's going to be able to think clearly. So this is when we need to walk away. The situation isn't important enough to warrant talking about it. So you get stuck on something as simple as which direction you're going to cross the road. And as dumb as the situation sounds, I've had it happen where the light was green one direction. We had to cross both sides of the road at one point, so we had to go straight and then take a left, or go straight, or take a left and go straight. And we missed a light because of it. It was nonsensical. So at a certain point in that discussion, I walked away. I made my decision. They made theirs, and we caught back up eventually. But it was a dumb situation. It didn't warrant any type of argument. There's some type of danger involved, such as a weapon. So when there's weapons, when there's threats, physical harm, any of that, we need to walk away. We also need to get help. If we're in a school system, adults need to be notified as soon as possible. If you're at home, we should let parents know that someone is showing a gun around or a knife around if that's what they're doing, because that's not how we handle weapons. It should be a safe manner in which we use those tools. It's also best when the conflict results in you, someone else, or something being hurt or destroyed, such as suicide, vandalism, or threats of self-harm or others. So this one can be quite complicated. When someone's threatening to hurt something, or an animal, for example, again, getting adults involved is really easy. The hard one is such as suicide. So when someone is saying, I'm going to commit suicide, that one should be easy, call 911. But when we say threats to self-harm, what I want you to do, the next assignment for you to complete, again, on the same piece of paper as the last one, is when a X is threatening self-harm, how do you deal with the situation specifically? Again, when an X is threatening self-harm, how do you specifically deal with the situation? So write that down on the piece of paper where you had to talk about using interpersonal skills to reduce violence. And now write out your response to this particular one. Again, pause the video as needed to write your response. This question will also be due on Monday. We look at managing conflicts. The last one is just to get away, walk away, get help. But when we manage conflicts, we can ignore the situation. This might be good for those really simple situations. Maybe my friend is intentionally trying to bug me to get me mad. Maybe my sibling is intentionally trying to get me mad. So those you can ignore, hope that they go away. The next one's walk away. It's amazing what distance between you and that person can do to kind of manage that conflict or even resolve it. Wait until later to resolve it. So I'm angry, they're angry, nobody's listening to anybody. Again, come back, kind of like the math problem. Being able to talk clearly and slowly and listen and ask questions with one another is the best way to resolve any conflict. Tell an adult or authority until someone helps. So if there's a potential for escalation, this person has a history of becoming violent when they get mad, get someone else involved and someone who's going to take action. When we get more and more of our friends involved, sometimes it becomes more drama than actual help. But by getting adults involved, you might be able to resolve it quicker with less conflict or less injury. And it's a must when conflicts involve destructive, dangerous, or disturbing words or behaviors to get help, to get out. We could talk about abuse at this point, but we'll leave that for a different time. All right, so your number 3 homework assignment. So what you're going to do at this point is you are going to research 5 statistics on violence and the impact they have on all of these categories. So the violence statistics can be whatever you want. They need to be from a reliable resource. And you'll write down the statistic and then explain how it goes through all of these particular aspects. So if we talk about, let's say, I'm making this up, 1 out of every 4 students have been bullied during their high school career. So individually, obviously, the person who's being bullied is going to be impacted negatively, have low self-esteem issues, may be sick more often or not be at school. Families might deal with having to deal with the sick student who isn't sick but just doesn't want to go to school because they feel unsafe, or the stress or deal with their child dealing with depression because of it, which puts a hardship on the family. Friends, well, if it's one of your friends, you may not be able to communicate with them effectively because they just won't communicate with you, which becomes difficult to share. We look at schools. Schools are dealing with the situation of bullying on a regular basis. How can the school get involved more or less? And does it make the school a safe place if a person is missing school because of the behavior of other students? Communities, are we accepting this behavior? Are families getting involved to prevent and reduce the bullying situation? Or do they kind of say kids will be kids? And how does that make the community look from an outside standpoint? Our nation, right? Are our schools even safe places to be? We have one of the higher gun rates within, I think, first world nations. Again, I'm just winging it. So, with our nation, if our bullying situation is so bad that we're bringing in weapons and threats, do we have a safe school system? Onto our world comparatively to other people, would you want to come over here and have your son or daughter go into our school system? You'll do that with 5 different statistics. Please have them on different points. This one can be abuse, it can be bullying, it can be any form of abuse. It can be gun violence, it can be physical threats, robberies, whatever, home invasions, any of those statistics, again, from a reliable source, and with each of those categories involved each single time. And like it says, note your sources. Please prepare to give your websites. We will go over all of this on Monday, so this is your 3rd assignment. So pause the video and work on it at this point. We're going to continue forward with electronic aggression. We did talk about electronic aggression already once this year, so this will be really short and sweet. Questions that I want you to consider, and I want you to just talk with someone and jot your notes down, so I guess you can consider this your 4th assignment, is what can you do to prevent cyberbullying from happening to you? So you should have done this. This is almost review because we went through this already. What can you do to stop cyberbullying if it happens to you? And how can you influence others to stop cyberbullying? So with a friend, I want you to answer these 3 questions. One of you only has to write it down. Just please put answers with and then your partner's name. So again, you can pause the video and work on this. This is assignment number 4. All right. So what do you think about cyberbullying? From your personal experience, from what you have heard from friends, how widespread do you think cyberbullying is? Do you think it is something teens should do something about? If so, what? What are the consequences for the target of bullying? The video that we didn't show stated that asking for help isn't a weakness, but a sign of strength. Who should you ask help for? And what are the legal consequences of cyberbullying? If you're watching this on day 1, you will wait till tomorrow to answer these questions. This will be your 5th assignment. But you can answer these later when you watch the video. Take a note at your time stamp right now so that you can come to the slide quite quickly. Again, there will be a video that can help you answer this. So please be prepared to watch this. Again, you'll watch this video tomorrow. Okay, so that's going to end this PowerPoint. So if you have any questions, if you need to go back through this, you're welcome to do so. Again, this PowerPoint does give you 5 different assignments.